Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to add the search functionality to our YelpClone project. This is going to take two steps. First we're going to have to update the Nav Bar so that the search form actually submits data, and then we're going to have to add the route to actually do the logic for that data. So step one, let's go ahead and look at the views. So views, partials, it's been a while since we've been in here, Nav Bar. And just to show it again, it's this right here that we're going to edit. Down at the very bottom, you have this form right here. That is your search form. This is what we're going to edit, because right now our form has a class, but it has no action and no method. So we're going to add those. The action, there's not a specific RESTful route to use for searching, but I suggest something very straightforward like comics/search or item/search or something like that. Just makes it pretty easy to understand. And your method, and this is important, method is going to be get. It is not a post request because we're not creating anything. Get is whenever you're retrieving information, which is what we are doing. So make sure that your method is get. So right now you have your input. There's no name on this input, so it's not actually submitting any data. So let's give it a name. Name, and this could be, you could call this whatever you wanted. You could call it search, you could call it query. I like maybe term, search term. Call it whatever you want, doesn't matter. You just have to make sure you know what that is so you can use it on the in the route. And that's all there is to updating our form. Now let's go ahead and refresh this page. And let's submit this form. Oops, it would help if I ran the actual web application. Make sure it runs. There we go. We got collection ensure index is deprecated. This is completely normal. This came about because last time when we ensured an index, it's basically deprecated inside of MongoDB. Now Mongoose provides us some documentation to fix this issue because it's a warning, but it's not an issue. So let's look at that documentation real quick. Ensure index. Basically what you have to do is just pass this key value pair into our connect string, is what it comes down to. I'll just go ahead and cliff notes that one for you. So inside of our connect string, which is in app.js, we've already got a couple options passed in. Whenever here it is. We're already using new URL parser. We're already using unified topology. Now we just have to also use the create index true. So if I save that, this will refresh and we will no longer get that warning. There we go. So that's just something that came about because of changes that MongoDB has made. So let's try and refresh this page now. Oops, we got to go back to comics. There we go. Now let's try and submit this form. Let's do Watchman. Hit search and let's see what happens. Right now, it's going to root/comics/search and passing in our term as a query string, which is exactly what we want. The problem is that our route is currently set up so that comics/ID is trying to query the database for this ID, and that obviously is not an ID. So that's where the problem comes in. And if we look at our terminal, it will tell us that. Argument must be a single string of 12 bytes because it's trying to find an object ID. So we just have to now create the route. So inside of routes, inside of comics routes, let's make one. Now this is important. The placement of this route matters because right now these routes are going to /comments, because remember inside of app.js we're putting comments in front. They're all going to /comments. This one's going to /comments/new. This one's going to comments/ID. If we put our new route below this, our search route, it will never be hit because it'll think that we're trying to do ID. So we have to put it up here above the show route. Search router.get/search request and response, and this actually is going to be an async function. So do our try catch. Broken search. So we are going to first get all of the comics that match a certain query, whatever that query is. So const comics equals await comic.find, and now here's where the magic comes in. Inside of this find object, we're going to pass $text, which is another object that says $search, and this is where our query term will go. So request.query term. And again, if you use another word instead of term inside of the nav bar, you would put that there. Now this is just a little bit of boilerplate. If you're interested in the documentation, you can look at that. It's right there. Use Google text operator. The text operator is right there. It shows you exactly what to do. db.collection.find text, where the search is whatever you're searching for, and that will query through all your stuff. Notice that if you try this without doing the text indexing that we did in the last video, it will not work. It will return an error, basically saying you can't search until you index stuff. So that is what we are doing. We are getting the comics right here. So now that we have the comics, all we're going to do is just response.render the regular comics page. That's the index page, but we're passing in the comics that we got here, which means that all the comics that are going to show are the ones that match our search term. So let's save that, and let's see if it works, or if I made a typo somewhere. So let's go back to comics or whatever. So now you can see we have these three. Let's search for Watchmen. And only Watchmen comes up. Let's search for DC, which is the publisher, and only the DC comics come up. Let's search for Vaughn, which is the author of Y the Last Man, and only that one comes up. Let's search for Vertigo, and only Y the Last Man comes up because it's Vertigo. Let's search for something that doesn't exist, and nothing comes up. So now, with just those few lines of code, we have implemented searching on all of the text fields in our database. It'll search for author, publisher, series, genre, all that different stuff. It will not search color. It will not search date, because those are not text fields. It won't search issue, because that's not a text field. It's only going to search text field. It'll search the summary and the title. So anything that is an actual text field, anything that we set up as a string inside of the model. So if you look here, anything that says string will be searchable. Everything except for the date, the issue, and color will be searchable. It'll even search the image link, by the way. But that's really all there is to it. In the previous video, we added the index to get the text, and then in this video, we updated our nav bar to actually submit that form to the proper place, and then we added that route inside of our comics routes. We made sure to add it before the ID, because remember, if you try to go to /comics/search, if your search is after the ID, this will catch that search because it's a wildcard, and it will never get to the proper one, so you have to make sure you put search first. Inside of there, we queried our database using this the syntax right here. $text is an object where $search is whatever you're searching for. This right here comes from our query, because remember, the query lets us access the things in that query string. So in that right here where term, so request.query.term equals this, or equals Alan Moore. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to help. Thanks.